Hello, I am now live, and let me hit this other thing. Hi, this is Elliot, and welcome to our CTisus Facebook Live. Today's Thursday. I forgot what date it is, but I know this is Memorial Day weekend coming up. Today's May 26th. It's June in a few days, which is why I was finishing up with Lily. The pearls is like 230 pearls for next month, and probably 150 articles from this past month. So a lot of really cool things are going on. We're in the middle of the contrast shortage. I think you probably all have read enough about that. Good reviews in radiology, AJR, JACR. I think everyone's managing. Hopefully it will not be as bad as we thought it was going to be. I know GE is working hard. The plants are opening in Shanghai with more workers. The places like in Norway, Norway and Ireland are working overtime. They're producing more contrast, and instead of shipping it by a slow boat from China, as one would say, they're shipping it by air freight. So probably it gets there in 2 days rather than 2 to 4 weeks. So we still need to be very careful until we have all the supplies with us. But in the short term, I think things are getting better and things are looking up. There are seminars you can listen to. There's something I'm participating in at 12:30, which is in 28 minutes from RSNA. There have been things from JACR I mentioned, and a number of different things. But I hope you're all managing. And actually, today is a little different than most of our things. Most of the series, I kind of tell you a topic. Like last week, we had quizzes, and people seem to like the quizzes, so we're doing more of those. But now, actually, what this one's meant to do is for you guys to ask us questions. And so that's really what the purpose of this one is. So if you guys ask me questions, then I'll be able to answer them. So let me see. I'm trying to figure out. I pressed a button here, which kind of made my thing really small. But okay. So I do have some questions people have. Well, one, of course, like a bunch of them relate to contrast. How are you managing? I think radiology needs to be at the front of the line, figuring out what to do. But again, even places like Hopkins, for example, radiology uses 65% of the contrast. A third of the contrast is used by other departments, so it's very important that everybody be involved. And maybe it needs to be central. One can think about things. Hold on. I need my drink here. One can think about things, for example, like with COVID. It wasn't that every department came up with a plan. Certain departments, medicine, ER, were more central in the plans, but everyone kind of followed along the story. So I think that made it very, very helpful, and I think that's a very important way of doing things. So you need to have buy-in. There was a note from Hopkins today that went out to the referring docs, how we're all trying to manage together. And again, I think that's all great. I think everyone working together is probably an ideal way of doing things. And I think it's an easier way, perhaps, of making certain that things go well and that there's no finger pointing. One of the things people have commented on, perhaps, is, what if you don't give enough contrast, if you do a study poorly and you get sued 3 years from now? You're not going to be able to blame contrast, okay? I promise you. So it's very important that you conserve contrast the best you can, but do not make the mistake that you could do a bad study. So some studies don't need contrast. Some studies we've cut back a lot from 100 to 75 cc's, or in neuro from 75 to 50. So there are things you can do without really sacrificing the quality all that much. Yes, I understand the studies are not going to be Picasso's, and maybe it's not going to be the one that you're going to publish in your journal. But on the other hand, it's good enough in this period of time. So I think that becomes very important. We don't want to compromise patient care. Other things, of course, you can do, depending where you are. Some cases, ultrasound can be used, MR, fluoro. I mean, all sorts of things can be done. Fluoro may not be good. You can have to use up some contrast. But there's a whole bunch of things you can do. So I think that becomes very important to really do that and really just be cognizant of the fact that things can be really, really challenging, and we need to make sure we get through the challenge. Other things going on, just one thing that you'll read about that we're doing, we'll post it on CTisus, I'm sure, is that we are working with Microsoft, which we have for the past maybe 6 to 8 months, but now it's officially signed. So we have for the next 2 or 3 years with Microsoft, with support by Lustgarten, that we've been working on early detection of pancreatic cancer, but a whole bunch of things, including looking at cystic lesions, predicting whether or not it's a lesion that needs to be followed, whether there's dysplasia or early malignancy, should be someone we follow or don't need to follow. We're going to have predictive analytics. We're using a lot of the work that Microsoft has done now. Just to be clear, it's Microsoft AI for Good, which is their charitable arm, so it's really great. We're working with incredible people. Juan Ferez and his team of 25 are just amazing computer scientists and statisticians, and really a range of really smart people. So we're very excited to be working with them, and I think you're going to see a bunch of publications, but more importantly, I think you're going to see a lot of really important work, seminal work, that is going to impact how we practice radiology over the next couple of years. So I'm exceedingly excited about that. We also have been working, someone asked what are we working on. We just presented Amar Javad, who is here and part of the NYU with Chris Wolfgang, presented at DDW, which is the GI Digestive Disease Week. There's a pancreas club held on Sunday, about 300 people typically attend, and he presented some of our work on radiomics of neuroendocrine tumors, and his paper was chosen as one of the top 3 papers there. Basically, it was able to look at how good we can be using CT with radiomics and predicting whether a tumor is grade 1 or grade 2 and 3. Remember, a grade 1 tumor neuroendocrine you can simply follow, but grade 2 and 3 you need to resect. So it would be really a great way of being able to manage patients. We could look and determine whether or not we need to worry about this lesion. We're also doing work on sequential scans, trying to figure out, do lesions change from a 1 to a 2 to a 3 over time, and how we would need to manage those patients. But I think there's a lot of very interesting work going on, and that paper will be written. I know Amar is scheduled to do the first draft and get it done by middle of June, so I think hopefully you'll all be able to read it, but it does push the point about where radiomics is going. We've had great results with radiomics in pancreatic cancer detection, as well as pancreatic cancer for looking at response to chemotherapy. So we are kind of excited about that, and hopefully we'll be able to push that toward mainstream. And so I think that part's really good as well. Now let me see, what else? What other questions am I getting? People want to know, what do we see in the coming year? What's the new challenges? I think the biggest challenge in radiology, and this is the tech level, the nurse level, the doctor level, is staffing. I think everybody is understaffed and everybody is overworked. I think the post-COVID numbers are very good for radiology, surely in the financial side of things, but someone has to read the films, and I think that's becoming a burden. Also, COVID has changed the workforce. Probably some of these things would have changed over the next 30 years, but I think in a little over 2 years, COVID has done 30 years of change. The thought that a radiologist would read from home, unless that person was a teleradiologist who did that full time, was unlikely. We had nobody reading from home at Hopkins. Now a lot of rotations are from home. People want to work from home. Many institutions, including our own, are hiring people who are remote, who never will step foot in this building, will be reading remotely in their pajamas, or whatever they choose to wear. We'll have people in California, Washington, Kansas, and every institution you look at is doing the same thing. So all of a sudden you have people who really want to work, want to do good radiology, I guess, but they want to do it from home. People want to control their schedule and control their life. It's interesting how that's going to work out. Even on the admins, secretaries, all of the, I won't call ancillary help, very important colleagues of ours, most institutions, people are working anywhere between 2 and 3 days at home at a minimum. And they do not want to come back. Now, what does that mean long term? I have concerns. I think, like my admin, who's incredible, she worked from home a day or two a week. I think we will get by. She's really good, and I just adjust to when she's here and prepare things in a certain way. But I think education, we still have COVID issues, but we all would admit the best way of teaching someone is sitting next to them and pointing and going through image by image. When you're doing remote, you're kind of looking at the scan, and then if there's a mistake or some comment, you'll say something. You're not really there. And the thing is, when you're remote, you're on a computer. You're like Big Brother. People want to sit next to you. I think one of the things, you've seen a few articles published in different journals where it says, the remote stuff, they're doing things by Microsoft or by Zoom is great. I think those articles, maybe during COVID when people couldn't come in or people were sick and people wanted to spread apart, then it was a necessity. So I think we need to separate what's a necessity in times of crisis from what's the optimal thing you could do. I think there's no chance in hell, let's get down to the bottom line, that me looking at an image when I'm sitting on a computer is the same as me sitting next to you. I just don't think it's possible. I think if you ask the question, can you as a radiologist read the films as well remotely? If you have a good connection, you can. Maybe you're more comfortable, maybe you have less interruptions. There's a whole bunch of reasons why it might work. And I think in private practice, I can understand you need less seats, people can work more hours because there's no travel. You live in cities like LA, you could be driving an hour and a half to work. But in terms of teaching, I know and I'm told that a lot of the residents, and this has nothing to do with Hopkins per se, a lot of the residents in many places are unhappy because they just don't feel they're getting that hands-on experience that they would have gotten 3 years ago or they came to expect. And particularly residents who've been here before, been in program before, and they did 2 years and the last 2 were all remote. It was not the same thing. And I think all of us really would have a hard time saying it's exactly the same thing. So we'll have to see specifically where that goes in the future, but I think it's a challenge for radiology. It's less a challenge for medicine, right? Or surgery, surely, because surgery, even in the worst of COVID, they were operating across the table from each other and with each other. So I think it's a radiology type thing. And there's hardly any fields that are like radiology. How many fields can you read from home with the same accuracy and efficiency that you can at work? So it's a challenge for us. And again, I'm not arguing that you could read the films just as well and you can get all the films done, but I am questioning, so I won't argue, but I'll question whether teaching suffers, education suffers, academic productivity suffers, all of the things that go beyond film reading do suffer. So that's kind of what I think, and that's what I could tell you. So let's see, are there any other questions? I'm getting a whole bunch of things. Some people have requested to be in my live video. I guess we could be like SNL and have an audience behind us. That'd be kind of cool. Always wanted to. I've been to SNL many times way back when, but I've never been on the stage singing, dancing, telling a joke. I think I have a few good jokes, but I don't think I could dance or sing. But I could do a little Catskill comedy. I could do that. I can tell you some jokes, but I think maybe it's not the time. People have suggested, however, that I do make a Facebook Live where I just tell jokes. The jokes, there's no curse words, and the jokes are in good taste. They're almost all parakeet jokes. And what can you say that, who's going to get insulted by you saying something about a parakeet? Okay, I'll give you my one joke. I'm going to call it a day here. This guy wants to buy a parakeet. He goes to the store and he says, "How much is this parakeet?" They had like 4 parakeets. This one's $1,000. Too expensive. This one $500. This one $400. This one $10. He goes, "Well, they all look the same. Why is this one $10?" He goes, "Well, this parakeet is the most annoying parakeet in the world, and he has a foul mouth and everything else. But for $10, what do you got to lose? If you don't like him, you can give him back." So the guy gives him the $10, takes the parakeet home, and this parakeet is cursing and screaming and making all sorts of bad words and things. And the owner is a very nice guy, and he wanted to rehab the parakeet. So he would read him some Shakespeare's, have him play soft music like a little bit of Sinatra, some Beatles maybe. But no matter how nice he was to the parakeet still was foul-mouthed. He would curse and scream and make noise and all sorts of things. This man had great patience, but one day he just cracked. He grabbed the parakeet by the throat, opened his freezer, threw the parakeet in, and closed the freezer. There was a bunch of shuffling, then there was nothing. The guy walked away, then about 10 minutes later he goes, "Oh my God, what have I done?" So he composes himself, opens the freezer, goes in to grab the parakeet, and the parakeet walks out onto the guy's hand. Parakeet says, "Sir, I've been the worst pet ever. I'm the worst parakeet. I'm foul-mouthed, I'm nasty, I'm annoying. But I promise you, starting from this moment on, from this very moment, I will be the best pet anybody had." And the guy goes, "That's wonderful." And then the parakeet goes, "Can I ask you one question? One other question?" He goes, "Sure, what's the question?" He goes, "What did that chicken do?" Okay. Actually, I was supposed to say, "What did that turkey do?" But chicken's good enough. Anyway, all you chickens, you turkeys, and you parakeets, have a great day. And those of you who are celebrating Memorial Day, have a great Memorial Day weekend. And with that, I'll see you later.